Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Casey Philpott. I'm a member of the Greater Atlanta chapter of the IIBA, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to the career path of the BA segment. Your moderator will be Eckman, and he'll introduce you to your candidates.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. Hope you're having fun and ready to close out this exciting session. We've got a panel discussion talking about DA career. Really, it's going to be an open forum, anything you want to talk about. We have an amazingly talented and attractive group of panelists today for us. And so that they can do themselves justice, we'll start with Clinton. And why don't you guys give a quick blurb about where you are, what you're doing, and with every BA, there was a pivotal moment when you're like, I have found my calling in life. When was that for you?
All right, so let's see. My name is Clinton Aegis. Undergraduate degree in Computer Information Systems from Georgia State. Master's degree in Management and Technology from Georgia Tech. I'm currently working on my doctorate in Organizational Behavior and Strategy Implementation. So that magical moment for me was, originally I went to school, I wanted to be a doctor. And, I liked helping people and solving problems, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. But chemistry at the University of Georgia taught me something otherwise. So I tried to figure out, where's my place. I did a little bit of software development, early web page design and development, things of that nature. And I did a lot of design work also, very creative, visual kind of person. And I was on a project and I said, I don't want to be a developer because as a developer, they stick you in the dark room and you code. I don't really want to be a designer because they just put someone else's idea in place. They don't really get to come up with all the creative, they just make it look pretty. And so someone told me that Georgia State had a program where you get a combination of both things. And so that CIS degree at Georgia State was, and I'm going to date myself, it was COBOL, C++, Visual Basic, Power Builder, networking systems, business systems. It was marketing, management, accounting, finance. It was becoming a BA. So that's how I got to that place. I left that with Java skills as well as understanding business and all the things that related to the organization. So I walked out of there with the degree as a business analyst. And that's kind of where I've been for the past 14 years. And that's nice.
Excellent. Professor Peña?
So I'm Russ Peña. I work for SunTrust Bank. I'm the primary architect. I know you guys probably heard this a couple of times. I'm the primary architect of the SDLC and the methodologist for the bank. I have some counterparts there, but largely in the enterprise PMO, the requirements management community of practice lead. So I facilitate the communities of practice for business analysis, and I sit on our Business Analyst Center of Excellence, which several folks at this conference, including Hans, are included in. I actually really became a BA by accident, and it was I was at GTE Wireless way back in I'm dating myself in the mid-90s, and I too had gone to school for chemistry, and I thought that I was going to go off and do great things in that space, and decided I didn't have the wherewithal to withstand medical school and all of that and such. So I got a job, and I was like, I wanted to stay in school, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And I took a job at GT Wireless doing, first of all, customer service, but I sort of worked myself up to a data control analyst. And my boss would come to me and he would say, hey, I think that we could do things differently if the IBM 3270 behaved this way. Really old mainframe. So I would go and I would work with the developers, and we would create these billing data control jobs that would allow us to have a little bit more efficiencies. And pretty soon someone said, oh, well, Russ is the guy that's collecting requirements. And somewhere towards the end of the 90s, the term business analyst came about, and it sort of stuck. And I was called a lot of things during those years, but business analyst is the nicest of them. So that's how I advanced, and then eventually went to other telephony industry organizations, and ultimately have been with SunTrust for the last 8 years.
Excellent. Kathryn?
My name is Kathryn Burk. I work for McKesson. I'm a business architect there. My aha moment was similar did understand it, but I didn't want to sit in a dark room, like you said. So I got a job, and then it was for a data entry firm, and they were doing paper claims. So they were keying them into like a mainframe, and they were like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a program? So that's kind of how I started to be an analyst. I headed that project up, and just kind of went and blossomed from there. So I've been doing it for 11 years.
Wonderful. So part of the panel and I guess the description of it was talking about, as a BA, where do you go from here? And that's definitely one of the aspects. But we also wanted to open it that we've got BAs, we have people that are hybrids, people moving in. So really anything along the career path. And we have experts that range not only from diverse backgrounds, diverse industries. So want to just open it up and say, okay, what questions do we have to start? What is it you want to know? Something brought you into this room. What was it? What were you hoping to get away? Because I want to make sure that everyone here, whatever question brought you into this room, gets answered by the end of this session. Yes, our first guest.
If you're considered a lead or a senior analyst in your organization, and you do not want to go into managing people, what's next for you? What are your options?
Okay, so if you're a lead, you've already reached the lead level, but you don't want to manage people, you don't want to become or go the manager track, what can you do to not have to do the HR responsibilities?
And you still aspire to grow.
Are you acting in the capacity of a business analyst?
I am a lead in my organization.
And so the obvious next step for you and your organization is that you would have other BAs underneath you. You'd be a manager of BAs?
According to the career path?
Well, actually, we don't have a manager of BAs. We sort of, it's not centralized like that. We have managers that that manage PMs, a couple of analysts, different roles that report up to managers. So all of the analysts are not centralized under one manager.
But you also said you don't want to be a manager, right?
That's right. So that's my question. What are there options?
So Kathryn, tell us, let's start off with you. What's the difference between a business analyst and a business architect? Because a lot of people aren't familiar with that term and how it really it's starting to take the BA path to the next career level without going into management.
Well, I've had different experiences, but at McKesson we have 5 different levels for BAs.
Is there any way we can mic her? Yes, please.
We will try. So you two get to switch ends. You're still on the end, but swap with Clinton.
Oh, what?
Because the mic cord, we're limited by mic cord.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me? It sounds really weird when you're up here. At McKesson, we have 5 different levels for BAs, which equates to 4 different titles. So you have an associate BA, which is entry level. So thank you. So you're just starting out as a business analyst. You might be there. Basic skills. You have good oral, written communication, critical thinking. Then you go into the business analyst title, which is 2 different levels, and that's you have some working knowledge of analysis, and those levels are differentiated by how much mentoring you need from a senior analyst. And that kind of leads into what a senior analyst is. A senior analyst is going to have the ability to run a more complex problem or project, and they're also going to mentor BA or business analysts and associate analysts. And a business architect is not only going to mentor those that are under them, but they're going to build the process out and continuously work to improve it for their company, for McKesson anyway. And you can manage multiple complex projects all at the same time. So you're able to juggle things around. Whereas a business analyst might not be able to do that. They have to just stay on one project.
Clinton, you had some thoughts on this too.
Yeah, so in my former employer, I was a lead business analyst, and I did not have anyone that reported to me. And basically, to Kathryn's point, I was very vested in functional expertise, domain knowledge, and specific systems within our organization, right? So I was the person they went to understand how this particular tool worked. So I was responsible for managing that knowledge within the organization, as well as I did have to do some coaching of, other BAs because I have been there the longest and understood our processes, and I was kind of responsible for helping define what those were. But from an HR standpoint, they did not report to me. So that was kind of the best of all worlds, right? So I do see that a lot where, and I think you guys used to do it at SunTrust, and maybe you still do, but you guys had like you used to do. You used to have a manager person who did all the human resources aspect of it, and then all of the other, functional aspects kind of did, was like a matrix type of organization. And so I've seen companies that do that as well. But I mean, that's a good way to go about maybe explaining things within your organization, and then, from a growth standpoint, definitely moving towards, I've seen a couple of different patterns where like director of strategic initiatives is one path, but that's definitely, leading people. I've seen, director of strategy, CIO, CIS, those types of roles kind of coming out of the business analysis area. And then just me myself, I push very heavily towards the whole strategic aspect of the contribution that a BA can make to an organization from managing internal change, because the BA is a change agent. So moving them off of requirements on a piece of software and into, let me help support the change that's necessary for our business to make so we can achieve the objectives that we're trying to achieve, strategically.
Or it could be a product.
Oh, product
Manager, so you
also
make
something
decisions for that product, but that's something like a lateral.
Yeah, I was going to say, at SunTrust we also have 5 levels from intermediate all the way through expert, and it aligns very closely when we've built the professional development model, which is a capabilities matrix. It aligns with levels of supervision and your, your knowledge of the knowledge areas within the BAWorld. So obviously, an expert level, one of the expectations is that you're sort of on point for CBAP. But I think what you're asking is something a little bit different. I think what you're saying is, and maybe, I don't know if your company or your organization has that real structured path for how business analysts grow from different levels, and that means different job grades and different opportunities for more financial money for you. But one of the things I was thinking too is that in the lines of business or business segments, how we're aligned is that there are opportunities out there for business architects. And also, I would think that you might want to explore opportunities within your program or project management office, because sometimes there are opportunities to help with methodologies and your expertise, bringing that to the software development lifecycle or communities of practice that might afford you some opportunities without being a manager.
Just whenever you want to talk a little bit about, a lot of us are BAs within a company, and you've kind of got the defined roles and the growth and the learning and that sort of thing. But how does that change when you're in a consulting company or you're working as an independent consultant? Because then, or a practice manager, so why don't you talk a little bit more about the opportunities that might open up to really what the base of the question is, how do I keep doing what I'm doing now but just make more money and not be a manager?
All right, so I can speak to that a little bit. I am a delivery manager with Matrix Professional Services, and that's just a fancy term for consultant/project manager. And so, as such, I obtained my Scrum Master certification, my Scrum Product Owner certification, and I function as a project manager. It's both hats thing, right? I function as a project manager on all of my projects, as well as, because of my domain expertise in business analysis, I add a whole lot of value in coaching my clients on the process of product ownership, helping them understand that the product owner is really like a business analyst, and if you're not one, you need to get one to help you, kind of help go through that process. So that's another way that you can leverage your skills as a consultant and help different organizations. Also, again, just coming in from that change management angle, I beat that drum heavily, because as a business analyst, if your job is to understand the objective of the project, right, and that project is supposed to accomplish something within that organization, you need to understand not only the software, but the people aspects of what you need to do in order for that project to be successful. Because so many times we build it and throw it over the wall, and then we keep moving. And so in today's consulting environment, that's not really a good thing. So even though the sales guys don't sell that, I go in and I preach that from an accountability standpoint, so that those customers can understand that. And again, all that comes from that business analysis background, where according to IIBA, business analyst is a change agent. So that is how I try to act in that consulting capacity, as a change agent and as a trusted advisor, right? Because that's what we do. We build relationships as a business analyst, and as such, when you are out there consulting, whether it be on clients from my employer, or it be individual projects that I get on my own, it's all about managing those relationships, expectations, communicating those requirements, making sure that the scope is understood. And then, of course, you have to do project management aspects of things also, which are tracking, the reporting, status reports. I mean, status reports are going to kill me, right? I mean, I just can't do it. I can write a 100-page requirements document, but I cannot get my weekly status report done on time. I just don't get it, but it's just, I had a hang up on it, so sorry for spinning off there.
Yeah.
That's a funny point.
As a business analyst working within a company, Kathryn just said how business analysts roles are various roles in her company, and there's another person who just said we don't have anything like that in my company. What should your thought process be? Do you want to make yourself competed as in the market, or do you want to limit yourself to the one company that you're working in, employee or consultant?
Okay, great.
Can you repeat the question?
So multi-part. The first part is, Kathryn, if you can talk through the BA job family in your company and what the levels are, how do you draw the distinction? And
I did. I think she's asking.
Oh,
I did
you got
explain it.
It differs varies from company to company.
Right.
Do you limit yourself to what your company
Okay.
thinks a career path should be, or do you want to put yourself out there in the market and see how competent or how viable you are and grow towards that level?
Okay, so do I stay with one company and go through the BA
No, it doesn't matter
progression?
where I say. What's my thought process in growing myself as a BA?
Right, I can actually speak to that. So one of the reasons that I'm involved in IIBA is because I was in the same predicament, right? The employer that I was with, I had reached the top of my salary band, and they didn't have any career path for a business analyst, and they didn't really know what we were going to do, and so they gave me a new title, which was lead BA, and I didn't get a raise or anything like that. No raise. It was horrible, right? So, amen, you've been there. And so I was saying, okay, all right, what's next for me? I need to figure out what's going on. I tried to look at the landscape, look at the job landscape, and it's like you said, job titles were all over the place, just ridiculous. In my searching, I ran across a survey from the IIBA, right? And they had a breakdown, and you can find this on the website. I forget the exact document that it's titled, but it shows all of the different job levels broken down: enterprise architect, business analyst, senior, intermediate, all the different skill sets and competencies for those different roles. And then they also had a salary survey for Atlanta and all the different markets around the United States. And I said, oh wow, this is pretty good information. If only my employer knew about this, right? So I took and I tried to get a piece of it, and we were talking about my review, and I didn't forward them the document itself, but I kind of took some pieces and kind of emailed and said, oh, this is a good way that I think I want to grow my career, and didn't really buy into it and all that kind of stuff. And so I said, well, you know what? One of the things that's important is for this to be standard across all companies. Because even if I get them to adopt it and I get this title that's, Enterprise Business Architect, I can go to SunTrust and they're like, well, I don't know what that is, so that didn't translate to anything to me, right? So I decided to run for president of the Atlanta chapter of the IIBA so that I could participate in communicating this message to all companies that I run into and evangelizing the whole process of IIBA so that when people like you go and look for jobs in these other organizations, they've all bought into the concept of IIBA like they did PMI, right? And because of that, then we can all very easily move back and forth between organization. So I actually took it to a much higher level, and that's actually why I participate, at the level that I do here.
I'm going to touch on that too because I have a similar situation where I was trying to educate my employer because I wasn't a business analyst. That's not my title. It was something crazy and wasn't good. I didn't like it. I'm not a titles person, but it was really awful. It had nothing to do with what I was actually doing. So I tried to educate them on that, and I got thrown around from job title to job title, and I wasn't going to go anywhere with that company. So I took a leap of faith and went to a different company, and not only did I jump financially crazy amounts by leaving that company because they were so uneducated on what we do, I'm much happier because of it. So if you're in a position to get out of a company that doesn't understand what you do, I think it's in your best interest to do it. And another thing is that I wasn't very confident either from leaving that job because I was like, they don't understand me. I understand what I'm trying to do here and what I do, but I'm not sure that they definitely don't understand me. So I'm like, I'm not really sure I fit in. So when I started another company, I was like, oh my God, they're all smarter than me because they have a process and all that. But it's just not the case. So you just have to be confident in yourself too and know that it is transferable from all different kinds of domains.
If I can add on to that, right? If you're working in a smaller shop where there are 1 or 2 business analysts and you have a multitude of projects or different types of projects that you're always working on all over the map, different types of things, tight deadlines, having to get out documentation, odds are that your skill level is above average. Probably like on a 100-point scale, you're probably like a 80s to 90s from a capabilities standpoint. You probably don't know all the different processes and all the different templates that are out there, but I'll tell you again from my own experience working in my former employer and then leaving there and coming to my current employer, Matrix. The speed at which I was able to deliver, the depth at which I was able to go, the broad range of projects that I'm able to cover, was by far, above their expectation because I had done so much in a smaller shop and wore so many hats. So, to Kathryn's point, sometimes you might have to break out of that, that smaller box to kind of get out there and see what it is. And believe me, you will find, the value. It's like being in a relationship, right? You break up and you go off and think, oh, I'm nothing.
It's refreshing.
Yeah, and someone finds you and they think, wow, you're awesome. You're like, am I?
Are you advocating? Enter relationships now.
So one of the things that just came up in some of the conversation was that how do you know your skill and what you do at one company or in one job is transferable, and how do you know that expert level at this company isn't the same as novice level at the other? So Russ, why don't we start with you, because you manage the capability and practice for SunTrust. How do you gauge levels? What are the things you look for where you're saying, okay, I'm going to evaluate someone whether they're here or whether they're coming in, and I'm going to put them into that 5-level ratings level system? What are some of the things you look for that goes from our novice all the way to our enterprise BA?
Well, it's interesting, that you asked that. Because our capabilities matrix, it really is a matrix, defines, different parameters about what you manifest as a business analyst in your current role. And each one of those capabilities expands based on levels of supervision and expertise and such as it aligns to the BAWorld, as I mentioned before. It's that in itself is not a science, though. So it really, because anyone can fall in between those levels or have different capabilities that they excel in, and those that maybe they need more work in. I find, for me personally, if I have to sit down and do interviews, and I have some real critical skills that I look at out of the box, even when I'm just doing internal evaluations, and that is, how well do you communicate? How well are you, or what's your semblance to our current processes? Let me take a look at some examples of your documentation and your fundamentally what you've been doing. and that'll help me gauge based upon, short of being on a project with a resource, working with them in their day-to-day activities, I don't know. So it's kind of like going in for a psych eval for somebody that doesn't know you. You can sit there and be asked questions and sort of fall into this matrix, but it's really about finding out how articulate you are in that particular role.
So one of the capabilities is requirements gathering and elicitation. So walk us through, just briefly, what you would see for a BA2 or BA1, what kind of project, what would you expect out of that person to produce, and then just take that up to the level so that we can kind of gauge what it would look like. What would that skill or maturity level leadership you talked about look like?
So a business analyst 2, a 1 or a 2, I would expect that to be a 1 certainly, but a 2, maybe have a little bit of domain knowledge, and be the type of business analyst that would need to be coached quite a bit, to be shadowed on their efforts, to not be responsible for the requirement specification, those tasks, but rather be an integral part of development. And then as I move into 3s and 4s, I would expect a level of leadership to where the business analyst would begin to take ownership of certain sections, maybe even an overall specification, and that's a broad range. I might say you have a continuous development effort, which to us is sort of a smaller bite-sized pieces versus a larger investment project. 2s and 3s and 4s. When I start to get into 4s and 5, I'm expecting, based upon your level, my expectations are really increased. I'm expecting you to be a business analyst who is leading an effort, who is coaching the intermediate, who is responsible for the artifact, who is putting their name behind the deliverables associated with that. And also, I would even expect that business analyst would have enough wherewithal to be able to articulate for me in the elevator conversation that we hear so much about really what's happening in their space. They can assess the temperature of, look, this investment project is coming down, we're at this level. That's what I consider to be more of an enterprise business analyst. And that enterprise business analyst really is a very, much more of a senior leader and someone who is really sort of the encompassing BA around a large project.
Kathryn, you had some thoughts to add.
That's almost exactly the way our tier structure is. But our interview process is very rigorous and horrible. I almost didn't want to work there. I had to go through a simulation, but even though you're scared, you know what you're doing.
Excellent. You had a question?
Well, that's all. I guess it's more of your opinion of how the VA is doing. We've been tasked to come up with some KPIs to kind of grade us, so they know how we're doing. But do y'all have any suggestions? Because the number of defects against my project that I wrote in a
That's
week,
bad. You can't.
Don't do that. We do. We struggle with this too. So what we've come up with is we're measuring against how many peer reviews you do, that you participate in, how many test case reviews you do. It's very hard because how do you measure somebody? It's really like, what are you doing? I mean, just making sure we're participating. So we're looking at it more as like a group effort. Like, how many test cases are we doing per release? How many peer reviews are we doing? I can't remember offhand. We have checklists that we have to go through, and that's part of how we're gauged too. Are you doing your checklists? Make sure you cover deployability and all those things that everybody forgets about, those non-functional stuff.
Do you guys do customer surveys? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
I think that would probably be beneficial.
We do monkey surveys individually too.
So Clinton, you had a thought, and also the IIBA's capability model to be leveraged.
Right. So I mean, I think that's one way to evaluate, and then just from what's your name?
Adam.
Adam. Like to Adam's point, a survey to kind of ask questions to evaluate someone against those capabilities. So as relates to ability to